Welcome to another deep dive. This time, we're going to get into the honeymoon effect. That like magical start to a relationship where everything is, well, amazing.
Yeah, exactly.
We're going to be looking at Bruce Lipton's book, The Honeymoon Effect.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, and it gets into some pretty cool stuff like the biology and even quantum physics behind it all.
Really interesting stuff.
We're going to try to figure out just what creates those sparks and maybe even more importantly, how to keep those sparks glowing even after, things settle down.
Well, one of the things that I really like about Lipton's book is how he brings together, personal stories and actual science to explain why we feel this drive to connect, to bond. And get this, you are actually a community of, get this, 50 trillion cells.
Wow, 50 trillion.
All living in this, remarkable harmony.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and we'll see how that relates to, finding lasting love, too.
We always hear that humans are social creatures, but to think it's, happening at a cellular level is just mind-blowing. And I think we've all felt that urge to connect,
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever walked into a crowded room and instantly started looking for a friendly face?
Yeah.
Like right away.
Oh, absolutely.
It's almost automatic.
Yeah, that's your biological drive to bond kicking in. It's not just some abstract idea. It's like this basic force that's been pushing us towards connection since, well, forever.
Yeah.
Since the beginning.
And it makes me think of that movie Castaway,
Oh, yeah.
Even when Tom Hanks had all his basic survival needs met, he risked everything just to escape that island.
Right.
And that was all because of just how deep this need for human connection runs.
Exactly. And what's really interesting is that this primal drive, this drive to connect, it actually overrides the drive to have children, to reproduce.
Really? So you're saying we're hardwired for connection even beyond passing on our genes?
Absolutely. And more couples today are choosing to be child-free, and they build their lives around that partnership,
Yeah.
It's like in Laura Scott's book, Two is Enough.
Oh, yeah.
And it really highlights how those couples make their relationship the priority.
So we've got this powerful drive to bond. But what makes the honeymoon phase so unique? Is it just, those sparks of attraction, or is there something more going on?
Well, Lipton gets into quantum physics to explain that.
Quantum physics.
Yeah. He says that when two people are really in sync, their energy fields actually amplify each other. It creates something called constructive interference.
So you're saying our vibes are literally mixing and multiplying?
Yeah, something like that.
I can definitely relate to that. Have you ever felt energized and uplifted just being around a certain person?
Oh, absolutely.
Instantly?
It's a great feeling, isn't it?
It is.
It's kind of like if you throw two pebbles into a pond and the ripples either clash or they combine to make bigger waves.
I see.
He says harmonious relationships are like those bigger waves.
So they amplify your energy.
That's the idea.
That's so interesting. I've definitely had those interactions where I feel completely drained, after being around someone.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe that's the opposite, destructive interference.
Yeah, that's a great point. And it really shows how this whole energy exchange goes beyond just, romantic relationships. About how you're drawn to certain objects, or places. It's that your energy interacts with everything around us.
It really is. Wow. Okay. So we've got the biological drive to bond. We've got the energy dynamics. But what about the chemistry? All those lovey-dovey chemicals that we always hear about.
Ah, yes. Lipton calls those our love potions.
Love potions.
It's so fascinating how he connects ancient love potion recipes to modern neuroscience.
Wait, are you saying there's some truth to those ancient love potions?
Oh, maybe not in the literal sense, with the powdered partridge brains or whatever.
Yeah.
But our brains do release all sorts of neurochemicals at different stages of a relationship.
So we're brewing our own love potions up there.
In a way, yeah.
I love that. Tell me about those ingredients.
Well, it starts with the classics, estrogen and testosterone.
Of course.
They drive that initial attraction, that spark the flames of desire.
But those are considered, male and female hormones, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've always heard them described that way.
Right, but they're actually critical in both sexes.
Okay.
Lipton uses the example of zebra finches. The males actually need estrogen to create testosterone, and that allows them to sing.
So the estrogen helps them attract a mate.
Exactly.
Wow. So estrogen's playing a vital role in that male courtship behavior.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got estrogen and testosterone fueling the initial attraction, but what keeps us coming back for more? What keeps those sparks flying?
Well, that's where dopamine comes in. It's the pleasure and craving neurotransmitter. And it basically reinforces those, enjoyable experiences. Think about that rush of excitement you feel, when you're with someone you really like.
Oh, yeah.
That's dopamine at work.
So it's like our brain is saying, hey, this feels good, let's do that again.
Exactly, exactly. But dopamine, it's not enough for that long-term bond.
Right.
That's where vasopressin and oxytocin step in.
Yes. Isn't oxytocin the cuddle chemical?
It is. It fosters trust, bonding, all those warm, fuzzy feelings. Studies have shown it reduces conflict, it increases generosity, it even lowers stress levels.
So it's like a big hug in a molecule.
Pretty much. It's especially important for female bonding.
Okay, that makes sense. It's definitely associated with that, honeymoon phase.
It is.
What about vasopressin?
Vasopressin is sometimes called the male bonding chemical. Lipton points to some really interesting research on prairie voles.
Oh, yeah, those little guys, they're famously devoted, right?
Yeah, they are. And it turns out it's not just the amount of vasopressin, but where the receptors are, in the brain.
Oh, so it's like a key fitting into a lock.
Exactly. And when those receptors are in certain parts of the brain's pleasure centers, it makes monogamous tendencies, even stronger.
Wow, fascinating. So, but, are we just like slaves to our biochemistry then?
Well, all these chemicals, are just part of the story.
Okay.
Our thoughts, beliefs, perceptions, they all play a big role too.
So you're saying we're not just, controlled by our biochemistry.
Right. Our minds have a huge influence over how these chemicals are released and how we experience love. And that's where things get even more interesting because we actually each have two minds at play.
Two minds? Wait, are we talking about the conscious and the subconscious?
Exactly. Yeah. Lipton says that every person brings two minds to a relationship, which makes it, a four-way interaction.
Wow.
There's the conscious mind, which is, that thinking, reasoning part of us.
Yeah.
And then there's the subconscious mind, which runs on autopilot based on all those programs downloaded, mostly in childhood.
So it's not just me and you in a relationship. It's also like our subconscious minds interacting too.
Yeah.
That's a lot to think about.
And here's the thing. The conscious mind might be all about finding that loving relationship.
Right.
But the subconscious mind, it could be unknowingly sabotaging those desires because it's running on those old programs.
So even if we consciously want a healthy relationship, our subconscious could be working against us.
Yeah, it happens a lot.
That's both fascinating and a little terrifying.
Mm.
So how do we even begin to, understand these subconscious patterns?
That's a great question. And that's what we'll dive into in the next part of our deep dive.
Stay tuned, folks, because we're going to uncover how to reprogram those old patterns and make way for, a perpetual honeymoon. So we just talked about how our subconscious can kind of mess things up in our relationships. How does that even happen?
Well, it all goes back to childhood. Those early years when our subconscious is like a sponge.
Absorbing everything.
Yeah, soaking it all up, everything around us.
You mean we're like downloading relationship patterns from our parents, and caregivers without even realizing it?
Exactly. And it's not just what they say.
Right.
It's how they, how they interact, how they handle conflict, how they, show affection, all of that.
All going in.
Yeah, it gets imprinted on our subconscious.
So even if we consciously disagree with our parents' relationship style, those patterns can still be running things behind the scenes.
It's true. It's like having this invisible script, that's dictating our choices and behaviors in relationships.
Okay, so what if someone, had a not so great example of a relationship growing up? Are they just doomed to repeat those patterns?
Not necessarily. Lipton says that even though our subconscious is powerful, it's not set in stone.
Yeah.
We can actually reprogram those old scripts.
Reprogram our subconscious. That sounds like really intense. How do we even start doing that?
Well, awareness is the first step. We have to, shine a light on those subconscious patterns that are running in the background.
But how do we become aware of something that we're not even aware of?
Well, Lipton suggests something called muscle testing.
Muscle testing.
Yeah. It might sound a little strange.
Yeah.
But it's a way of accessing the wisdom of our bodies.
Okay.
Our bodies often hold on to information that, our conscious minds haven't fully grasped yet.
I've heard of muscle testing, but I'm not sure how it works.
Sure. Well, it's based on the idea that when our conscious mind and a belief, held in our subconscious, When those two clash, it creates a subtle weakening in our muscles.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's like our body's sending us a signal that something's, not quite right.
So, for example, if someone was tested for the statement, I am worthy of love, and their muscles weakened, that would suggest they have a subconscious belief that they're, not worthy of love.
Exactly. And that underlying belief can have a big impact on their relationships.
Wow, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so let's say we've, uncovered some of these limiting beliefs, through muscle testing. What's next? How do we actually reprogram those old scripts?
Well, one of the most effective ways is to tap into the theta brainwave state.
Theta brainwaves. I think I remember reading about those in Lipton's book.
Yeah. It's that state our brains are in when we're deeply relaxed, like right before we fall asleep or just as we're waking up.
Okay.
That kind of twilight zone where our subconscious is more open to suggestions.
Ah, I see. So it's like slipping in a new idea when the subconscious is more receptive.
Exactly. Lipton recommends tools like hypnosis or subliminal tapes to get to that suggestible theta state.
Hypnosis. That sounds kind of intimidating. Is it like what we see in the movies?
Not at all. In this context, it's a guided process of deep relaxation that allows us to access those theta brainwaves and implant positive affirmations.
What about those subliminal tapes? I've heard about those, but are they actually effective?
They can be. It's basically listening to audio recordings with positive messages, embedded beneath, like soothing music or nature sounds.
I'll say.
And while you're relaxing, those messages are kind of gently rewiring your subconscious.
So it's like planting seeds,
Yeah.
in the fertile ground of our subconscious.
That's a great analogy. And what's great about these techniques is, they don't require a lot of effort on our part.
That's good.
We're basically just tapping into the power of our own minds to create, lasting change.
Okay, so muscle testing helps us uncover those limiting beliefs, and then techniques like hypnosis or subliminal tapes can help us replace them with, positive ones. What else can we do to reprogram our subconscious?
Well, Lipton also talks about energy psychology tools, things like EFT and PSYCHK.
Yeah, I've heard of those.
They can help shift those beliefs more quickly by working directly with the body's energy systems.
It sounds like there are a lot of different options out there.
There are.
It's encouraging to know that we have the power to actually change those ingrained patterns,
We do.
But I imagine it takes a lot of patience, and effort.
It does. Change, it doesn't happen overnight.
Right.
It's like learning a new language or a new skill. It takes time, practice, and consistent effort.
And what about communication? Does that play a role in all of this?
Communication is huge. In fact, open and honest communication can actually turn those disagreements,
Into opportunities for growth.
Exactly. By sharing our feelings and needs, we create a space for understanding and deeper connection.
That makes sense. And that's where mindfulness comes in.
Right. Mindfulness is about being present, aware of our thoughts and feelings and behaviors without judgment. It helps us to interrupt those, automatic reactions.
Which are often driven by our subconscious.
Exactly. So instead of getting swept away by those old patterns, we can pause, take a breath, and, choose a more conscious response.
This is all starting to make so much sense. But I have to ask, what about those couples who just seem to effortlessly create that honeymoon glow? Are they just lucky?
Well, luck might play a role, but I think there's something deeper at work. Lipton uses a really interesting analogy to explain this. He talks about noble gases.
Noble gases. Now we're really going deep.
Yeah, stay with me on this one. You see, most atoms are constantly trying to, bond with other atoms to create stability.
Okay.
It's like they're searching for their missing piece.
Yeah. I can see how that relates to relationships. Sometimes it does feel like we're looking for someone to complete us.
Exactly. But noble gases are different.
Okay.
They have complete electron shells, which means they're already stable on their own.
So they're content being single.
Yeah. They don't need to bond with anyone else.
So they're like the lone wolves of the atomic world.
And just like those noble gases, people who are emotionally whole, and self-loving, they don't need relationships to complete them.
They're not driven by, neediness or codependence.
Right. And because they're not seeking something outside themselves, they can approach relationships from a place of, abundance and joy.
So it's not that they don't want relationships, it's just that they're not dependent on them for their happiness.
Exactly. And that inner wholeness, that self-love, it creates this like magnetic energy that attracts healthy, fulfilling relationships.
It's like they say, you attract what you are.
Exactly. And here's another interesting twist.
Right.
Even those self-sufficient noble gases, they can form temporary partnerships.
They can.
Yeah, they're called excimers.
Excited atoms forming partnerships. Okay, now you've lost me. What are excimers?
Okay, think of it like this. When noble gas atoms get like a boost of energy, they can choose to share that excitement with another noble gas atom.
Okay.
And that creates an excimer.
So it's not about need. It's about like choosing to come together to amplify that excitement.
Yeah, exactly. And those excimer partnerships, they radiate even more light and energy together. It's like a supernova of shared excitement.
I love that analogy. So if we can cultivate that inner wholeness, that self-love, we can create relationships that are like excimers.
Yeah.
Partnerships built on shared excitement and growth and mutual empowerment.
That's the idea. And those relationships can be incredibly transformative.
Yeah.
For the individuals involved, but also for the world around them. They radiate a positive energy that inspires others.
Wow, that's truly inspiring. Okay, my mind is officially blown. I have one last question. How do we cultivate that noble gas energy, that inner wholeness that allows us to create those excimer relationships?
Mm-hmm. That's a great question. And that's exactly what we'll explore in the final part of our deep dive.
Stay tuned, because we're about to unlock the secrets to becoming a love-generating powerhouse. We're back and ready to unlock those secrets to becoming a love-generating powerhouse. We've been talking about cultivating this noble gas energy to create those excimer relationships that Lipton described. So where do we even begin?
It starts with awareness, really.
Okay.
It's like we use muscle testing to uncover those hidden subconscious beliefs.
Right.
We need to be aware of the ways we might be giving our power away in relationships.
Giving our power away. What does that even look like in a relationship?
It can show up in a lot of subtle ways,
Yeah.
Maybe we're always looking for validation from our partner, or we're afraid to express our true needs and desires.
Yeah, I think we've all been there. It's like we're so focused on pleasing our partner that we completely lose ourselves.
Like, maybe we're trying to change our partner.
Oh, yeah.
Mold them into some ideal version that we have in our minds.
Right.
All of those behaviors come from a place of lack, from believing that our happiness depends on something outside of ourselves.
So instead of coming to the relationship as two whole and complete individuals, we're trying to fill some void within ourselves.
Yeah.
Through the relationship.
That's the recipe for codependence.
Okay.
Which is like the opposite of that noble gas energy we've been talking about.
Right, because noble gases, they're already complete.
Yeah.
And stable on their own.
Exactly.
Okay, so awareness is key.
Yeah.
But once we've identified those patterns, those power-draining patterns, how do we actually shift them?
That's where self-love comes in, It's about recognizing our inherent worthiness.
Okay.
Regardless of, our relationship status or what anyone else thinks of us.
It's like embracing that inner noble gas, knowing we're already complete just as we are. But self-love can be kind of a tricky concept. It's not about being selfish or narcissistic.
No, not at all. It's about treating ourselves with, kindness, compassion, respect.
Okay.
It's about speaking kindly to ourselves.
Yeah.
Setting healthy boundaries and prioritizing our own well-being.
So it's about becoming our own best friend, our own biggest cheerleader.
Exactly. And it also involves, pursuing our passions,
right?
Nurturing our talents and doing things that light us up.
Yeah.
When we fill our own cup, we have so much more to offer in our relationships.
That makes a lot of sense. And as we cultivate that self-love, something kind of magical starts to happen, right?
It does. We become less, less needy, less clingy, less dependent on our partner to fulfill us.
Right.
We start to radiate that noble gas energy, that sense of, inner peace and completeness.
And that energy, it's magnetic.
It is.
It attracts people who are also operating from a place of wholeness and self-love.
Exactly. It's like we're creating this force field that repels anyone who's, trying to drain our energy or complete them.
Right.
And that's when we can create those excimer relationships.
Yes.
Partnerships that are based on mutual empowerment and shared excitement.
It's like two stars colliding. creating this supernova of love and possibility.
It is.
But what about those of us who are already in relationships? And maybe we haven't quite mastered that noble gas energy yet.
Yeah.
Is it too late to create that honeymoon magic?
It's never too late. Remember, change is always possible, especially when both partners are, willing to do the work.
So it's about having those honest conversations, supporting each other's growth, and making a conscious effort to shift those old patterns.
Exactly. And it's also about remembering that relationships are, they're a journey, not a destination. There will be ups and downs, challenges, triumphs.
That's like life itself.
Exactly. But if we approach those challenges with awareness, compassion, and a commitment to growth, we can create a love that deepens and expands over time.
Lipton actually mentions the ancient Indian herb Tulsi, also known as holy basil, and it's revered for its healing properties and its ability to adapt and thrive in all sorts of conditions.
It's a powerful plant.
It is. It's like a metaphor for resilient relationships.
That's a beautiful analogy. Just like Tulsi, our relationships can become more resilient,
right,
more vibrant,
yeah,
and more deeply rooted as we nurture them with, intention and care.
So the honeymoon effect, it's not just a fleeting phase.
No.
It's a state of being that we can actually cultivate.
We can.
Through awareness, self-love, and a willingness to evolve together.
Absolutely.
And as we do that, we become like those noble gas, those excimers, radiating love and joy and possibility into the world.
That's beautiful.
What a beautiful vision. So to all our listeners out there, we encourage you to keep exploring this topic. Remember, the power to create a perpetual honeymoon, it really lies within each of us.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Until next time.